Well, you can see I'm here in Paris, wonderful Paris, a city which has meant so much to me, a place where I studied for my doctorate in theology. Right behind me you can see Notre Dame Cathedral, one of the great spiritual, architectural, artistic places in the world. We're going to be filming here in Paris, and then in Lisieux and in Chartres, in Colmar. Then we're heading over to Germany, to Cologne, and then we're going to Poland. So we're on kind of a European adventure here for a few days, but we just arrived, and I'll be filming tomorrow up at Notre Dame. So please follow us on the website, and we'll be sending some postcards back to you from this European adventure. God bless.
Welcome back to the Word on Fire show. I'm Brandon Vaught, the host and the content director here at Word on Fire Catholic Ministries. Joining us is the founder of Word on Fire, Bishop Robert Barron. Bishop Barron, good to be here with you.
Brandon, always a joy to be with you.
We talked at the end of the last episode about the new Word on Fire journal, and I wanted to mention it one more time. Excuse me, the Word on Fire Institute journal. I want to be very clear about that. You can find it at wordonfireshow.com/journal. You can see samples of it and find out how you can subscribe to it. It's a journal on evangelization and culture that we've created for our Word on Fire Institute members. So there's high level philosophy, interviews with filmmakers, poetry, artwork, all sorts of things in this realm of evangelization and culture. Bishop, I know seeing the first issue must have made you very happy.
Oh, I loved it. Yeah, I've just been delighted. Every time I look at it, just the cover, I think, is so splendid. But I remember just leafing through it when I first got it and finding, again, what I said about Chesterton last time, like opening a bottle of champagne. That's what I thought when I first read it.
So we're releasing it 4 times a year. It's a quarterly journal. Everyone who joins the Word on Fire Institute gets it for free. It's included in the membership. So go to wordonfireshow.com/journal. Okay, today we're going to be doing one of our favorite types of episodes. It's a Q&A episode with Bishop Barron, but with questions only from children. We got children all over the world who have called in, recorded questions. They're almost unbearably cute. So let's dive right in, Bishop. Here's the first one. It's from John Paul. He's a 7-year-old from Oregon. Here's his question.
My name is John Paul. I'm from Oregon, and I'm 7 years old. My question is, on the new heaven and the new earth, what if someone sins again like Adam and Eve?
Wow, what a cool question. That's a really deep question. And John Paul, you're living up to your name of Saint Pope John Paul II. Here's the way, John Paul, I'd answer that. Can God sin? And obviously, no. God can't sin. I mean, God is so perfect, right? Well, in the new heavens and new earth, we'll be so in the presence of God. We'll be so close to God that we never fall away. See, one reason we sin is that whatever we have, it's not enough. And we say, oh, maybe it's this, or maybe it's that. And I'll try this or try that, or I'm not really happy. But see, in the new heavens and new earth, we'll be so completely happy. We'll be so completely in God's presence that we won't want to fall away from that. So I wouldn't worry about it. It won't be like Adam and Eve where someone might sin, and then the whole thing has to happen all over again. In the new heavens and new earth, we're so caught up in God's love that we're not going to sin.
All right, let's go a little north to Toronto, where we're going to hear from 6-year-old Nathaniel, who has a question about Judas and Jesus. Here's Nathaniel's question.
Hi, I am Nathaniel from Toronto, Canada, and I'm 6 years old. And I have a question for Father Barron. Why did Jesus pick Judas to be one of the disciples when Jesus knew that Judas was going to betray him?
Oh, wow. You guys have been reading theology books, I think. These are complicated questions. And really, Nathaniel, I mean this. Some of the smartest people in the history of the church have wondered about these things. They are kind of deep, difficult questions. What would I say now? Why did he pick Judas? Here's one way to do it. Can God bring good things even out of bad things? And the answer is yes. So we look at bad things that happen in the world and we just say, how awful. Why did that happen? But God is able to bring good things even out of bad things. Think of somebody, I don't know, Nathaniel, if you know anybody in your family who's ever had to go to the hospital, for surgery, where they have to be in the hospital for a long time and the doctor has to do something like they cut them open or take something out. And it's terrible in itself. It's like it means a lot of pain and suffering. But from that comes something good that they're able to live and they get healthy again, right? Or maybe something really bad happens to you, but then you say, like a year later, I kind of see how a lot of good things happen because of that. And what looks so bad actually turned out to be something good. So Judas, who betrays the Lord, that's true. Is something bad. Yeah. But can God bring something good even out of that? And the answer is yes, because out of that came the cross and therefore our redemption and therefore our salvation. And so even from the bad act of Judas, God is able to bring something good. And Jesus loved Judas. He never stopped loving him. Judas turned away from the Lord, and that caused him great suffering. So think about that. It's not like God stops loving people. He doesn't. He loves them in a way even more when they've walked away. But yet he gives us freedom. We can say yes or we can say no. But even when we say no, God can bring something good out of that. I hope that makes a little bit of sense. It's really a good question.
All right, we're going to swing all the way to the other side of the world to hear from Caleb. Caleb is Filipino, but he's living in
Nice.
Qatar. He's 8 years
Oh,
old.
wow. Okay.
Here's Caleb's question.
Hi, Bishop Barron. I'm Caleb, a Filipino in Qatar. I am 8 years old and I want to ask you a question. Does heaven have nighttime? Thank you and God bless.
I think he's probably saying, do I have bedtime in heaven? That's probably what
Is
he's
there-
driving at.
Is there bedtime? That's a cool question. Well, and what an opportunity, Caleb. Wow, you're Filipino and then you're living in Qatar. And so, boy, you're getting exposed to so many different cultures and languages, and that's beautiful. And the Filipinos, I know so many Filipinos. They remind me in some ways of like my own people, the Irish. This little country, Ireland, but was so Catholic that it sent people all over the world as priests and nuns and missionaries. And the Philippines is sort of like that today. This intensely Catholic country, and it sends great, seeds of the faith all over the world. So that's beautiful. Does heaven have nighttime? Well, what's heaven like? Eye has not seen and ear has not heard what God has prepared for those who love him. In other words, it's so wonderful that we can't even imagine what it's like. And that's not a bad thing. That's a good thing. It means that it's so great that anything we say about it won't be enough. So, we can imagine heaven different ways. When I was a little kid, when the sun shines through clouds and those kind of rays of light come down, my parents said, "Oh, that's heaven's like that," And I still when I see that, I think, "Oh, it's heaven." Or the Bible even says it's this great city with streets made out of gold and the gates are made out of pearl. Beautiful is wonderful. What's it really like? I don't know. Eye has not seen, ear has not heard, but it's so wonderful that I can't even imagine it. Is it like all the beautiful things in this world? Yeah, I would say. It's like them in some way. It includes them in some way. Whatever is wonderful and rich and beautiful in this life. And so nighttime, I've always loved nighttime. Maybe when I was a really little guy, I would get scared sometimes at night, but I've always since then loved the nighttime. Um, Looking up in the night sky, at the moon and the stars and the planets, just the beauty of even walking outside at night. Is there something like that in heaven? Yeah, I think so. If it's beautiful and it's lovely and it appeals to our hearts, I think there's something like it in heaven. Is heaven like daytime? Yeah, light and color, and all the fun things I can do in the daytime. When I was a little kid, you're how old now, Caleb? You're 8. When I was 8, I loved baseball. Started playing baseball when I was like 7. And so daytime meant time for baseball. I can get outside and I can run around, and I can play and hit the ball and catch and all that. Is there something like that in heaven? Yeah. Yeah. So I think there's both daytime and nighttime and everything else, and things that we can't even imagine how wonderful they are. That's probably the best we can do, Caleb. But I think it's whatever you find beautiful in nighttime will be in heaven.
Thinking about this question about what heaven is like, Bishop, every time we do these kids Q&A videos, you and I remark how such a high proportion of the questions have to do with heaven, hell, purgatory, the last things,
Yeah.
death. Kids have this innate fascination
Yeah.
with those topics.
Yeah, absolutely. They're natural theologians. We knock it out of them, sadly, or we'll mock a questioner and say, "Oh, come on, they're just being silly." No, these are believe me, you won't find any questions more penetrating in Thomas Aquinas than the questions we've been looking at right now. And kids naturally have them. Good. Encourage them. Don't discourage the questions, but answer them, and then keep giving better and better answers as the kids get older, so they can move more deeply into it.
All right, let's go back to Canada. Now we're going to hear from
Nice.
a young girl named Kirsten. She's got a question about St. Michael. Here's the question.
Oh.
Hello, Bishop Barron. My name is Kristen McLean from Saskatoon, Saskatchewan in Canada. I'm wondering how St. Michael is an angel when he's a saint.
Oh.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, I love how beautifully you said Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, by the way. That's not easy to say.
Twister.
Yeah, and that's a very alliterative. You'll learn what that means later. Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, Canada. That's a cool question. Who's a saint? A saint is a friend of God. It would be one way to characterize it. Someone who loves the Lord and is counted as God's friend. And so in that way, all of the good angels are also saints, right? They're also friends of God. And so Michael's not unusual that way. All the good angels would be God's friends. What I find lovely about someone like Michael is God sends some of these friends of his to help other friends of his, namely us, right? The angels, some of them, we say, spend all their time in the praise of God, the ones who are closest to him. But then other angels have kind of a missionary spirit, and they're sent like apostles. They're sent out to help us. So Michael fights for us against the dark powers. Other angels are sent as guardians to us. Here's something that's really cool. Thomas Aquinas was asked, what happens to your guardian angel after you die and you go to heaven? And his answer was, he then becomes your friend. Isn't that beautiful? So in the course of this life, this friend of God, a guardian angel, is sent as your protector and guardian. But then when you make it to heaven, and the guardian angel is so happy about that because it means his work is done, he now becomes your friend. And not so much like your protector, he's now your companion, your friend. So in a way, all the good angels are friends of God, and they're our friends too.
All right. Next, we hear from Luke. He's a 5-year-old boy in Belgium, and he's asking another question about heaven, but this one in regards to Jesus. Here's Luke.
Okay.
Hello, Bishop Barron. My name is Luke, and I'm 5 years old, and I am in Belgium. Why is Jesus not in Belgium? And why is Jesus in heaven and not in Belgium? And so I can see him.
So Luke, I imagine tu parles français because I love your pronunciation de Luc. It was la manière française. Well, listen, I love your question. Why is Jesus in heaven, not in Belgium? Well, Jesus is in heaven. That's true. But he's also in Belgium. Why do I say that? Well, Luke, if you go into any Catholic church in Belgium, you're going to find somewhere in that church a little box called the tabernacle. And by that tabernacle, there'll be a little red light burning all the time. And that little light says something. It says that in the tabernacle is the Eucharist. And Jesus is really and truly present under the form of bread in the tabernacle. And so he's in heaven, that's true. But he's also, thanks be to God, in Belgium. And he's in France, and he's in India, and he's in Brazil, and he's in Australia, and he's in Portugal, wherever the Blessed Sacrament is, Jesus is. And you can visit him, and you can see him, and you can spend time with him. And I would urge you, you're 5 years old, Luke, huh? You can start. Brandon, your kids, huh? Some of the real little ones do Eucharistic adoration.
Right.
How young can they kind of handle it?
Down to one. As long as they can be quiet, they're welcome there.
Yeah. I mean, so I think, Luke, go into any Catholic church in Belgium and find the tabernacle, and you can spend time with Jesus in Belgium.
All right. Next up, we have another question about the last things, continuing the heaven and purgatory questions. This one's about purgatory. It's from Lydia. She's a young girl in Pensacola, Florida, my home state. Here it is.
Hi, this is Lydia from Pensacola, Florida, and I want to ask you, is purgatory a real place?
Yeah, thanks for that. What's purgatory? Purgatory is that place where we are purged, and purged is kind of a fancy way of saying kind of cleansed, right? We're kind of cleansed of all the effects of sin that still cling to us. You know what I mean when I say that, Lydia, is when you sin, it does something to somebody else, like you've harmed someone else, but it's also kind of harmed you too. It's made you kind of a less than perfect person. It leaves like a residue behind. And even, we go to confession and we're forgiven for our sin, but still a life of sin can affect us in this kind of negative way. We use it's an image. Don't take it too literally, but the image of dirt. They get dirt on us, Think of someone like if you're wearing a beautiful, white dress, and you go out playing in the mud, right? And the dress now is full of mud. Well, let's say you've been out playing, you got your dresses all dirty, and you've just heard that your grandmother has come. Your grandmother's come to the house, and she wants to see you. Well, your mother would probably say, "Listen, Lydia, before you see your grandmother, go up there and change your clothes, and you look dirty, and get yourself looking, better." And then you'll come down and greet your grandmother, right? So think of purgatory that way. Maybe it's a lot of us, we're going to leave this life, and even as we're friends of God, but yet we're still affected by sin. It's like we have the dirty clothes on. And so the Lord says, okay, we need to do a little work to get you ready to live the life of heaven. And so that's what purgatory is. Now, what's it like exactly? I don't know. People have imagined it in different ways. Someday when you're older, you'll read this great poet Dante, who imagines purgatory as a mountain that we have to climb. People have used the image of fire, but see, fire there that cleanses, that purifies, right? So what's it like? I mean, I don't know. I don't know. But I know what happens there is a cleansing and purifying to make you ready for heaven, if that makes sense.
All right. Next up, excuse me. Next up, we have a question from Gianna. She's a 5-year-old in Indiana. She's got a two-parter for you here, Bishop. Here's her questions.
Okay.
Hello, my name is Gianna, and I'm 5 years old. I live in Indiana Sunman. I have two questions. My first question is, did Saint Joseph ever sin? And my next question is, do you know where the stone tablets are for the Ten Commandments?
So I think
Wow.
just to recap,
Yeah.
I think she said, "Did Saint Joseph ever sin? And
Yeah.
where are the stone tablets of the Ten Commandments?"
Yeah. No, I think that's good. They're both good questions. Saint Joseph is one of the great saints in the whole church. In fact, we call him the patron of the universal church. That means, like, of all the saints, I mean, he's the go-to guy. He's a very powerful saint, one of the greatest people that ever lived. But the church says that only, two people are completely sinless, and that's Jesus and the Blessed Mother. And so, could Saint Joseph have sinned? The answer is yes. We don't say that he's sinless, but Joseph remains, Gianna, a great person and a great saint, and you should be a friend of his. It was several years ago, through a student of mine who had a great devotion to Saint Joseph, that I developed more of a devotion to Saint Joseph. Growing up, I wouldn't have had it that strongly, but in recent years, I have. In fact, in my chapel in my house, which is downstairs, um, I've got that little statue that Pope Francis loves, which is Saint Joseph sleeping, and he's on his side, and he's got like a little pillow, and his hands like this, and it's Joseph asleep because he was a dreamer. Remember, the Bible says he has dreams, and the Lord spoke to him. And so the idea is you place your petition, what you're seeking from the Lord, under his pillow. So as he sleeps, he kind of dreams of what you're asking for. So I've got him in my chapel, and every morning when I do my holy hour, I'm always very aware of Saint Joseph, and I tend to give him really hard things. You know what I'm saying? Things that I really want, or I'm really worried about, or I think are, boy, that's a tough one. I'll give that to Joseph because he's the patron of the whole church. And he's like a father. He was foster father of Jesus, and so he's kind of a father figure for the whole church. So, I mean, we don't say he's sinless, but I think he's a great, great saint that we should turn to. I love your second question too. The stone tablets of the Ten Commandments, we hear about them in the book of Exodus. Moses, remember, he breaks them against the Mount Sinai when he sees the people worshiping the golden calf. Well, those tablets we hear in the book of Exodus were put inside of the Ark of the Covenant, right? That ceremonial box the Israelites carried around, plated in gold. It's described. You can go in the Bible and see how it's described. But they put the Ten Commandments, the tablets, in that great box. And for centuries, they kept it, carrying it around with them. For a while, it was in a tent. In the time of David, they begin thinking about, let's build a more appropriate setting. And so it's David's son, Solomon, builds the great temple. And they put the Ten Commandments, the Ark of the Covenant, in the temple. And that lasted a long time. It lasted about 500 years until this, you'll read about it in the Bible someday. The Babylonians came, enemies of the Israelites, and they conquered Jerusalem. They destroyed the temple. Now, either they carried the Ark of the Covenant away and did something to it, or before they came into Jerusalem, it might have been taken away. Some think the prophet Jeremiah took it away and hid it. Some say he brought it to Egypt. We don't know. We don't know what happened. That's why you hear about the lost ark. Someday maybe you'll watch Indiana Jones, but that's what that's based on, the idea that we lost the Ark of the Covenant. We don't know where it is. So that's the answer. When they rebuilt the temple, they rebuilt this holy place, but it was missing what was supposed to be there, which is the ark. So that's the answer, is we don't really know where they are.
I know, Bishop, in Brant Petrie's new book, Jesus and the Jewish Roots of Mary, he has a whole section on Mary as the new ark.
Yeah.
And he says,
Yeah.
we ask all these questions about where's the ark? Where did it go? Where did it end up? But he says, we have a pretty clear answer in the Bible itself, because in the
Yeah.
book of Revelation, it says that the ark appears in heaven at the end of time. And
Yeah.
that passage is directly adjacent to the description of Mary being crowned queen of heaven. And so he makes the case that Mary is
Yeah.
the new ark. The old one fades away. The stone tablets of the old law become the new law in Jesus, and all those
Right.
connections.
And because she bears the word of God, as the old ark bore the Torah, the commandments. Mary bears the author of the commandments. And also, my last answer about the tabernacle. In any Catholic church, the tabernacle in a way, it's a super Ark of the Covenant. It's playing the role of the Ark of the Covenant, but way beyond just having some stone tablets. It has the body, blood, soul, divinity of the Lord Jesus. So we do, right, in Mary, who's the Ark, and in the tabernacle, this is the Ark of the Covenant.
All right, we have one more question left. Now, this one is not from a child, it's from a parent, but she's asking about how to help children to perform the corporal and spiritual works of mercy. So I wanted to get your take on that. Here's the question.
Hi, Bishop Barron. My name is Hannah from Noblesville. My question is, to what extent does the duties of a parent fulfill the gospel's call to the corporal works of mercy? My husband and I are young parents with small babies, and this Lent, we really want to practice almsgiving as the gospel tells us to, but it's hard with little kids. So how do we do this without neglecting our children or putting strain on our family, but also without becoming selfish as a family and turning inwards? Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. That's a great question. You know what I would do, Hannah, is just think of your life as parents as very much involved with the corporal and spiritual works of mercy. Feeding the hungry. I don't know anyone does that more than parents do, right? Every single day, you're giving food to kids that would starve otherwise. Give drink to the thirsty. Every time you put a glass of water or a glass of milk or something on the table, you're giving drink to the thirsty. Clothing the naked. Do anyone do that better than parents? They literally buy clothes all the time for their kids. Think of some of the spiritual works of mercy, right? Pray for the living and the dead. Well, you and your kids can do that together. One of the most vivid memories of my childhood is still my mother coming in at the end of the day, and she would pray with my brother and me. And my aunt, my father's sister, she was my godmother, but I never knew her. She died, I think, when I was less than a year old. But we always prayed for her. And she would remember this, and it was just a name, but we always prayed for her. So pray for the living and the dead. Do that with your kids every night. Bless them before they go to bed. I think is a lovely family ritual. It's a way of praying. Counsel the doubtful. That's a spiritual work of mercy. Parents do it all the time with their kids, right? Who have concerns, questions, anxieties, and you calm those. How about bear patiently the troublesome?
Would never do that. Never had any opportunities for that.
I imagine Brandon's got a few stories about bearing patiently the troublesome. So, I think you and your husband, certainly, your whole life as parents, just think of it in terms of the corporal and spiritual works. But, you mentioned almsgiving, and I think that's a very cool way to get the whole family involved. How about during Lent, you have a poor box, and you put it by the door of your house, maybe? And you just say every single time you leave the house or the apartment or whatever during Lent, put something in it. And now you tell your kids it could be a nickel. I don't care, a dime, But every time you go out of this house, you're thinking about the poor. Your kids have an allowance. Maybe some of them do. I don't know. But encourage them. Put a nickel in every single time. It's more to signal it in their mind. Or put it by the dinner table. So every time you sit down to eat, say, there are people right now your age around the world that have no food. Could we maybe make a little offering to them? So you and your husband can do it and have the kids throw in a nickel or a dime or whatever they have. So I think in all those ways, you can be very much involved in a spirituality of the corporal and spiritual works. What do you think, Brandon? You're living this all the time.
Oh, I affirm everything you just said. Yeah, that's a lot of things we try to do in our family. Also, maybe to add to it, I'd say whenever we do corporal works of mercy outside the family, we always try to make it a family thing. So it's not me just going to the soup kitchen by myself. I bring the kids, or we pass out sandwiches at a park or things like that. So make it a family event. Okay,
good. That's really good.
As we wrap up here, I feel like, Bishop, every time we do one of these shows, I'm announcing a new resource that we've put out, a new film, a new journal, a new book. We're just coming up with so much stuff. And today, the newest resource from Bishop Barron and Word on Fire are 2 new books in our Word on Fire Classics line of books. One of them is The Life of Christ by Fulton Sheen. The other one is a Flannery O'Connor collection, which pulls together some of her short stories, lots of her essays and journal entries, and one of her full-length novels. There's not really anything that exists like this in the Flannery O'Connor world. And what I especially like is the way we've arranged it. you can read the short story, and then right after that, read Flannery's own commentary on that
Nice,
short
yeah.
story, and then letters she's written to friends about that short story. So get both of these books. Now, to get them, you go to pivotalplayers.com, and we have a special deal now where you can order the special edition DVD set of the Flannery O'Connor and Fulton Sheen episodes of the Pivotal Players film series. Lots of bonuses that you get included, but especially these 2 books. We're throwing the 2 new books into this special deal. So just go to pivotalplayers.com and find out how you can order these 2 new books by 2 of the most important pivotal players. Well, thanks so much for listening. We'll see you next week on the Word on Fire show.
Hey everyone, it's Bishop Barron. I'm outside the Paul VI audience hall. Just came out of my first session of the Synod, and it was kind of fascinating. The Pope spoke to us in general terms about the Synod. Then we had the Secretary General of the Synod and the Relator General speak to us, just kind of laying out the Instrumentum Laboris and some of the major themes we'll be covering. It was all in Italian, but they gave us the speeches, so I was able to sort of follow along. I can read it fairly easily. The funny moment, though, was there was an election for this commission. I guess it's a new thing on information, and it was done by regions. And so I suddenly found myself there's the voting for America, and my name was in there among many others. And so they voted, and I ended up tied with Cardinal Lacroix of Quebec. And then everyone laughed because they said, in case of a tie, it goes to the older candidate. So this was the youth synod, but the older candidate got the vote. I'm actually very happy not to have been elected. So anyway, it was an interesting opening session. And then off we go. It's really a month now of this kind of work. So keep praying for us, keep following us, and God bless you.